But one piece of this system that needs reform is what we're trying to address today by introducing the Uninterrupted Scholars Act, which is a bill that Senator Grassley and many of us, Senator Begich, Senator Blunt, Senator Boxer, Senator Franken, and Senator Klobuchar have graciously agreed to co-sponsor and provide their leadership. Congresswoman Bass is a U.S. representative from California's 33rd District. She, along with Michelle Bachmann from Minnesota, Congresswoman Marino from Pennsylvania, and McDermott from Washington, D.C., have introduced the same bipartisan bill in the House, so we're very excited about the strong bipartisan support for this bill. They're often moved around from home to home. Children that have been abused or grossly neglected by parents come in for the protection and care of the local and state officials. It would be wonderful if those children could stay in one permanent foster home, preferably a real family. That usually doesn't happen, so children are moved quite often, trying to find just that right placement, which is not done very well. And as a result, children often have to move from school to school. So you can imagine the trauma of being taken away from your biological parents, regardless of how poor a parent or parents they were, having then to be removed from the only school you've ever known. And then in addition, a lot of times your school records aren't transferred, so children can lose time and lose, credits that they actually deserve. And there are just hundreds of examples of this, and it's been pointed out to us that this is a problem, and we're going to try to fix it through a combination of legislation and education at the local level.
Well, yeah, so tell me about that. I mean, there's this issue of school records is something that has come to the fore, at least in my work. I've seen this across the country. This is one of those issues that keeps on popping up. So, what are you guys doing on the Senate level to kind of help assuage this? And if you walk us through that, that would be very helpful.
Well, we're trying to do more, and what we've done is not enough, and the system is broken, and we're trying to fix it, and it's going to take some work. But in 2008, Congress passed the Fostering Connections Act, realizing that helping foster children who are temporarily removed from their families takes more than just the child welfare agencies. It takes the community, it takes the school, it takes, potentially the healthcare system to help nurture these children as well. So that's what Fostering Connections, the basis of the bill. It says in that bill that the records, that it says in the bill that child welfare agencies should really work hard to help foster youth obtain maximum educational opportunities. That sounds wonderful, but in practice it's very difficult because the welfare agencies can't even get access to the child's records because of a Freedom of Information or Privacy Acts at the federal level. So my bill, which I introduced today, along with 4 other wonderful Republican and Democratic senators, is going to change that. It's going to remove that prohibition to allow records to be easily transferred between the school system, and the child welfare agency. Because if you think about it, when a child is removed from the parent, somebody else the very next moment becomes that parent. And in that case, it's usually the state foster care agency. And so they have to have what parents should have: records, medical records, educational records, so they can provide that oversight and care that every child needs. Our system is not working that way now, and it needs to. And there's some real horror stories that we've heard from the field about how this is really impeding our ability to help nurture and love these children to get them to a safer place.
I was on that call with you when RJ spoke the first time, and I remember Libby chiming up and saying, wow, this is an amazing story, and RJ spoke yesterday at the Foster Youth Intern briefing, which was very powerful. And he mentioned, I was wondering if you could just kind of take us through that story very briefly about how you helped him get in front of Senator Blunt and how that helped move this along.
Well, RJ is an amazing kid. I mean, he's one of a million. I mean, he went through terrible abuse and in and out of dozens of homes, locked up in prison-like facilities, you know, for boys that enter a system at a certain age, I mean, you're almost guilty because you're a boy. And it's really a shame. And you get labels put on you that are just very, very difficult. You know, RJ was one of those kids. Miraculously, this child, because he's so smart and so strong, even after having to go through 9th grade 3 times, not because he couldn't do the work, but because the system had lost his records. Now he's gone on to graduate, went through the National Guard Youth Challenge Program, is going to be a phenomenal leader in our nation. But you know, this is just way beyond what should be required. So that's RJ's situation. There are thousands of other cases like it. And this bill will hopefully, and the education that we're going to do around it, should eliminate that. So the records flow seamlessly with the child, and there is a cooperation between the schools and the child welfare agencies.
Great, thank you. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've had the pleasure of you know, CCAI, and then myself as a little like attached on there.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure to go around with the Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth, which, and I'm just kind of wondering from your perspective, I mean, you, CCAI, the Senate Caucus on Foster Youth, I mean, you've really been the big leader, the leader on these issues. And I mean, how does it make you feel to kind of see that junior members from the other house are kind of, you know, taking up the mantle a little bit here?
Well, it's so exciting. I mean, the leadership that Karen Bass has provided since coming to the Congress, she's in her first year, former Speaker of the House of California, a true believer, though, an expert in the reforms necessary for our foster care system, led the effort in California. So she brings a tremendous amount of expertise to Congress. But we have veteran members like Michelle Bachmann. We have new members of the Senate like Roy Blunt. I mean, there's a rising awareness that these youth in foster care are not broken. Their families may be broken. Their families disintegrated around them, sometimes, of course, right in front of them. But that doesn't mean that these children are broken. These children are not criminals. These children just need the love and support of a family, just like every kid needs the love and support of a family, with sibling groups intact if possible. So it really is encouraging. It's encouraging to see the Christian Alliance for Orphans step up, both on the domestic front and the international front. And there's a real movement of people recognizing that these children are just children in need of a family. That's all they are. Yes, some of them have been abused and they need love and support, but they can recover beautifully. And like one of the young ladies that was with us this week as an intern, just got her master's degree from Harvard. These are diamonds in the rough, and all you have to do is just polish them up a little bit, and they can be just phenomenal human beings. And there's no secret to that. I mean, as one of the interns said to me, Senator, if you're not a successful child, how can you possibly be a successful adult? And she's absolutely correct. I mean, we think that kids can grow up and be just, you know, not nurtured and cared for and be sort of, you know, I don't know, and then just immediately grow up to be a successful adult. Doesn't happen that way. Successful kindergartners become successful second graders, and it goes up and up and up. And when you're successful at 12, you'll be successful at 20. These kids can't be successful without a parent or without a guardian or without somebody raising them. And so that is what I've committed my life to do, and I'm just passionate about it, and I help try to focus the most powerful people in the world on some of the least powerful people in the world to help them. And those are orphans in America and orphans around the world, and I think we're just starting to break through. The number of adoptions in America has tripled since we began this work 20 years ago. I'm thrilled about that. There are some major reforms that have taken place in the system that are much better than 20 years ago. We've got a long way to go, but international adoption has fallen off precipitously, and we're about ready to turn that around.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate the time you've given us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you know, it's incredible to see with what you're doing with this education bill. See that well-being is really coming to the fore. It's really, I mean, as a young student in this, I've only been looking at the system for 6 years, but I can already see change, and that's amazing.
And what we want to think of for our foster children, who are 1/2 of 1% of all the children in America. We have about 100 million children in America. This is less than 500,000, 1/2 of 1%. We don't want them just to survive the system. We want them to thrive. If the family they were born to disintegrates around them. We should have a much better system in place to catch them before they fall, connect them to a forever family, or help their family that is disintegrating undisintegrate, get back stronger, and be able to raise the child. But just to leave children out, flopping around on their own, trying to raise themselves, going from group home to group home or prison-like group home to group home, it's just obnoxious, it's shameful, and it shouldn't happen. These children have no access to their medical records. They're given drugs that they don't even know they're being forced to take. You know, half of them end up homeless on the street at 18. They're aging out of the system without families. There's no such thing as an unadoptable child. There is no such thing as a child that cannot be loved. It's just that our system is too lazy, it is inefficient, and it is not child-focused when it comes to placements. But we've found some new strategies that work, and we're getting ready to implement them.